I thank the Honourable Member for Harpenden and Beckhamsted for giving me the opportunity to talk about one of my favourite topics, that's public transport or lack thereof. As other rural MPs in the rooms will know, improving local transport links are a never-ending discussion for us, particularly in a constituency like North West Leicestershire that only has a bus service to rely on, as we have no passenger rail at all, so everybody needs to travel by road. Off the back of 14 years of austerity forced upon us by the coalition and the previous Conservative government, the thing we have to consider within this context, though, is our community has been growing throughout that time, alongside the destruction of our public services, libraries, shore starts and day services, but our public transport was cut by 62% too. Planning developments and local transport are also about understanding the population you have, as well as that population for the future. And when we talk about planning, we have to consider the impact, particularly in my constituency, of huge shed expansion in the industrial sector. When I speak to local residents in Heather regularly, a village within North West Leicestershire, they're just a stone's throw away from Ibstock, which is a developing town. Many have told me when they first moved to Heather, they didn't need to use public transport regularly, but knowing they could get a bus meant they had a service they could rely on. Now, as they're getting older, their needs have changed, but the public transport in Heather has long gone. Demand is fluctuating, but we're not evaluating that quick enough or planning for the long term, so that when a demography of a town or a state changes, we're reliant on the community fighting for themselves to get services in place, rather than bus services reflecting the needs of that changing community. So when we talk about connecting new housing developments to leisure, jobs, education, medical, and so much more, the context is that we have so many fewer services we did 15 years ago, so that context is important in these transport conversations. And planning for change, planning for growth is the very core of what we're discussing today. In fact, when planning a new housing estate, it feels so much more straightforward when considering the numbers you need to, say, to create a new school or a doctor's surgery. Might not be easy, but we understand the maths that sits behind it. However, when it comes to public transport, it's much less cohesive. It seems a complete waste then the public transport is lagging behind a much more piecemeal discussion. We're not planning for change, we're responding to it, and that is very frustrating for our local communities. We had a newish community development in my community that already had an enhancement of a new school and the opportunity to extend the doctor's surgery. As part of the planning conditions, residents were given a 6-month bus pass, but it's of little use. There are no buses. What is the point? What we're not getting is that true connection between what our new developments need and how to seamlessly connect new housing development to our towns. Our towns need those new communities to survive and thrive. Any building on existing town centre doesn't create that good connectivity, that extra footfall actually means that they have an impairment on growth. Quite often the bus network doesn't serve newer estates that sit just outside our town centres, which means those residents are just cut off from the town centre. The town centre is cut off from them. They simply just never visit. Therefore, the opportunity to help our town centre is lost. I was proud to sit on the Bus Services Bill Committee, and one thing that's clear from this government is the commitment to get more money into local authorities for public transport. However, the difficult part is trying to ensure the money is actually being utilised to the best of its ability, as we're not planning for that change, we're reacting to it. To conclude, Chair, there needs to be a better link between where people live and where the requirement of services actually are. We're never going to be able to plan for everything, but I'd like to hear from the Minister of their view of how bus services in the long term can be a vehicle for growth and create clearer community connections.